Hey folks, I'm best-selling author of The Power Zero, David McKnight. In today's video, you'll see part 2 of my conversation with CPAs Greg O'Brien and John Malone, in which we discuss the surprising answer to the question, will you really be in a lower tax bracket in retirement?
What do you say to the people that would say, well, I'm not going to be, when I'm at retirement, I'm not going to need as much money, or I'm not going to earn as much money. And then how do you reconcile that with RMDs, right? And what people kind of don't know what's coming down the pipeline. I think that's a big surprise to a lot of retirees.
Well, a friend of mine, Tom Hegna, says that, look, when you retire, he says, when do you go to Home Depot? On Saturday. He says, when you retire, every day is a Saturday, right? So people are going to be spending a lot more money than they thought. They're going to be traveling. They're going to be doing this. They're going to be doing that. Look, I will grant that if your income in retirement is the same as it is today, then your tax rate will likely be the same. That is an outdated paradigm. And the reason I say that is because if tax rates double, as experts are predicting, and your income in retirement is the same as it is today, you're not going to be at the same tax rate. You're going to be at potentially double the tax rate. And so if all of these experts weren't warning against a dramatic increase in taxes, I'd say keep on putting money into the 401k and the IRA, get those deductions at today's tax rates. Maybe you will be in a lower tax bracket of retirement. I wish I could say that is likely to be how it all pans out. We're just at the point where the debt is getting so big, the cost of servicing the debt so expensive that they're going to need massive infusions of cash just to be able to service the debt. And that debt service is going to crowd out all of the other spending. And the spending we're talking about is non-discretionary spending. In other words, we're required to pay this stuff by law. We can't get out of it. It's a law. We got to pay Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. We can't get out of it. So it is, we're in a bit of a tight spot, but the very least we can do as Americans is set up our retirement to take advantage of what are now historically low tax rates.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people know about that have tax deferred accounts, but they don't really understand the kind of the nuts and bolts of it is our RMDs, right? So what are those, and how are those calculated, and how can they become a trap in this whole kind of system?
Yeah, so there will come a time when the IRS forces you to take money out of your IRAs and 401ks, and that happens at 73. And there's a continuum where it gets older depending on when you were born. But you are eventually going to be forced to take money out, and it starts, about 3.7 range of whatever your balance is, and it goes up every year from there. So you could get to the point where your RMDs are so big that they push you into a much higher tax bracket than you thought possible. And the thing that people have to remember is that when you take money out of your 401k or IRA, whether by choice or by way of an RMD, that counts as provisional income. And provisional income is the income the IRS tracks to determine if they're going to tax your Social Security. So you're now in a position where your RMD goes into your tax cylinder and gets taxed, goes down to the bottom, gets taxed at the 10 and the 12, or whatever the future version of those tax rates are. But then all of a sudden, because of those RMDs, your Social Security becomes taxable. Up to 85% of your Social Security can become taxable. And now that flows into your cylinder right on top of all that other income. And if you have a pension or some other rental income, or you're working in retirement, then all that goes in. And then all of a sudden, you're in a much higher tax bracket than you thought possible. And so I think that what people need to recognize is it's not what your IRA is worth today. It's what it's going to be worth when you retire. It's not the RMD were you to retire today. It's what the RMD is going to be when you actually retire at 73 or 74, 75, what have you. And how much taxable income are you going to be forced to realize year in and year out? So this is, there's ways to mitigate all this, but the first step is recognizing what the problem is, right?
Yeah, right. Totally. And this struck a lot of good points there. One thing I didn't want to overlook too is that, the tax, you've kind of outlined what the trap can be for these tax deferred accounts, but that applies to some form of people, but not all, right? So what are kind of the main examination points or factors to kind of discern, whether it's going to be a trap for somebody?
Well, so if you are planning on spending all of your RMD, which is frankly 80% of America, 80% of America needs to spend their RMD, right? They need it to be able to pay their bills and to meet expenses month in and month out. However, if you have all of your income paid for with a pension, maybe you served in the Army or the federal government, what have you, and then it forces your Social Security to be taxed. And then all of a sudden you're receiving this RMD, and it's an RMD that you don't even really need, right? You're part of that. I think it's like 22% of America that doesn't need their RMD. So the question is, where does that put you? And if you're getting an RMD that you could have avoided being forced to receive had you just made some planning moves much earlier in your retirement, then now you're saying, okay, I'm giving more money to the IRS than I would have otherwise been required because I'm being forced to pay tax on an RMD that's landing on top of all my other income and being taxed at a high marginal rate. And if that rate is twice as high as we think it's going to be because of all of this underfunding of the entitlement programs, then that's sort of like a perfect storm. Right? Okay, folks, that was part 2 of my interview with CPAs Greg O'Brien and John Malone. In the next 10 years, I'm looking to put 100,000 Americans on the road to the 0% tax bracket. If you would like some help implementing a balanced, comprehensive approach to tax-free retirement that shields you from the impact of higher taxes, head on over to davemcknight.com and click on the Connect with an Advisor button. I'm happy to refer you to an advisor in the Power Zero network that has been trained, vetted, and qualified personally by me. If you're a financial professional and want to learn how to become a certified Power Zero advisor, head over to powerzero.com and opt into my free video series. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to drop them into the comment section below. I'll respond to every single one of them personally. And don't forget to click like, subscribe, and the bell so you never miss a video. This is David McKnight. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.